Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2, Joanne Davey. We're honoured to acknowledge Senator John S. McCain III, Senator, United States, Senator for Arizona, and Chairman of the Senate Committee on Armed Services. The Honourable Dan Tehan, Minister for Veterans Affairs, and the Honourable Miss Amanda Wishworth, Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs. Mr James Caruso, Charge d'Affaires, United States Embassy, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of Millicent High School from South Australia. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection in the following order. Senator John S. McCain III, Senior United States Senator for Arizona and Chairman of the Senate Committee on Armed Services. The Honourable Mr Dan Tehan, Minister for Veterans Affairs, and the Honourable Miss Amanda Wishworth, Shadow Minister for Veterans Affairs.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Keith Calladine. Keith Jovis Calladine was born on the 26th of September 1915 in the Sydney suburb of Balmain to Ernest and Mary Calladine. The young Calladine attended Rozelle Junior Tech and Leichhardt Junior Tech and was involved in boxing, competing as a flyweight, and golf. By the outbreak of the Second World War, Calladine was working as a barman at the Prince of Wales Hotel on George Street and had recently married Nellie Hutchinson. Keith Calladine joined the Royal Australian Air Force Reserve in August 1941. He was formally accepted for service in the RAF in January 1942 and was sent to initial training school. Calladine was promoted to the rank of leading aircraftsman shortly before attending elementary flying training school Benalla, Victoria, and then service flying training school at Point Cook. Early the following year, he was promoted to temporary sergeant. On the 6th of March 1943, Calladine left Melbourne bound for Britain. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who, throughout the course of the war, joined the Royal Air Force Squadrons, or Australian squadrons based in Britain. In Britain, Calladine joined the No. 15 Pilot Advanced Flying Unit at Leconfield before being promoted to Temporary Flight Sergeant on the 14th of July 1943 and transferred to an operational training unit at Litchfield, north of Birmingham. Later in the year, he joined 1652 Conversion Unit at Marston Moor in Yorkshire. On the 29th of March 1944, Flight Sergeant Calladine was captain of a Halifax, a 4-engined heavy bomber, which took off from Marston Moor at about 8 p.m. on a bullseye sortie, a night flying navigation exercise designed to resemble as closely as possible an operational night flight to a ground target. During the flight, the starboard outer prop blade broke away and the pilot lost control. The aircraft broke up and crashed just near Ayrshire, Scotland. All 7 crew members died in the accident, including British Sergeant William Hickson and Australian Flight Sergeants Eric Ray, Geoffrey Goodaham, Peter Sinclair, Robert Grosvenor and Ronald Walker. The 6 Australians, including Flight Sergeant Keith Calladine, were buried at Harrogate Stonefall Cemetery, Yorkshire. His epitaph reads, "We hope and wait." Calladine was 28 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of many of the stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Keith Jarvis Calladine, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.